Welcome back, and I wanted to continue with the exploration of deep water mathematics, and specifically I wanted to summarize how we arrived at our equations for uniqueness and the emergence of uniqueness. Now recall that we started off with the observation that there is a particular pattern that arises regardless of area, regardless of organizational complexity, so from the micro to the macro. And this pattern is such that there's a development that goes through similar phases through time. And this development is characterized by the three phases, the physical, vital, and mental, which can be metaphorically symbolized as the growth from a seed to a flower, where you have the physical representing the seed phase or that of status quo or the impulse to keep things the same, the vital representing the stalk stage or that of assertiveness. So when you plop a seed into the ground, there's germination and there's a lot of growth that takes place. It can be assertive and even aggressive growth. And then the mental that represents the flower stage, where the purpose inherent in the seed comes forward and there's a true curiosity and questioning that proceeds. So there's this implicit order in time, and when you step back and ask, what is it about the system that we live in that creates this pattern, regardless of area, regardless of the complexity that an organization may represent? And that leads us to some conclusions about the system that we live in. First of all, there is something that we may call omnipresence, and that's whereby no matter where we're looking or what we're considering, we see the same pattern arise. There is something that we may call omnipotence, because the reality is that in order to make the transition from one phase to the other, no matter what kind of journey or development we're looking at, is non-trivial, and it requires a lot of power to overcome the resistance. So there's this reality of omnipower. There is a reality of omniscience, because the right instrumentation, the right circumstances are used by the system in order to advance the possibility of an organization, and that cannot happen without some kind of vast and comprehensive knowledge. And finally, there is some kind of reality of omni-loving, because the system could have conceivably left us, or we could exist at some minimal stage of development, but the fact is that we don't, and the fact is that there is always an enhancement of possibility, and our operational realities become more and more rich, and therefore there is some kind of love by which this is happening, or philosophically that wants this to happen. What we then went on to do is that we looked at some equations for these four key characteristics that exist in space. So we represented omnipresence by the equation Ts, where Ts is a time-space causal wedge, and we said that from 0 to n, so in any causal wedge that we may consider, there is this presence that will seize on any opportunity, basically to make the shift from a physical orientation leading to a vital orientation leading, and from a vital orientation leading to a mental orientation leading. We had said about omnipotence that there is this implicit power that is greater than the aggregation of all resistances that might exist, and we had put the limits of this from, again, the time-space boundary equal 0 to time-space boundary equal n, and suggested that the sum of or the product of resistances at the physical level, the vital level, and the mental level in any journey was not equal to this power that existed in the system, and we aggregated all these resistances across all journeys and said that the power is greater than all these resistances. So that's how we typified omnipower. Omniscience, we said that across the time-space continuum from 0 to n, so any practical causal wedge of any size has this property of knowledge which leverages always the physical instrumentation and circumstance, vital instrumentation and circumstance, mental instrumentation and circumstance to bring about the shift from the physical orientation leading to the vital orientation leading, or from the vital orientation leading to the mental orientation leading. And finally, we had suggested that the equation for omni-loving is such that across any time-space continuum from 0 to n, there is this remarkable shift that continues to occur, whereby the negative orientation, so the physical negative orientation leading, or vital negative orientation leading, or mental negative orientation leading, gives way to the physical positive orientation leading, vital positive orientation leading, mental positive orientation leading, and so on, which can only suggest the existence of a love at the very core. So these equations, if you will, suggest the action of something that's implicit in our system that exists at every point. And in a sense, these four properties, the presence, power, knowledge, love, are archetypes for the possibilities that are going to exist or going to manifest in the system. So all organizations, regardless of scale, regardless of area, are going to be some combination or are going to express something of these four essential properties that just inherently exist in every iota of our system. And so what we went on to do is we went to try and describe these four archetypal properties or characteristics, and we said that omnipresence is a set that has characteristics such as service, perfection, diligence, attention to detail, perseverance, and so on. We had said that omnipower is a set that has characteristics such as power, courage, a sense of adventure, a sense of justice, and so on. Omniscience, we had said, is a set that has characteristics such as knowledge, wisdom, the ability to lay down the large laws of how things work, so law laying, the ability to penetrate into the deepest depths of knowledge, penetration, the ability to synthesize all kinds of knowledge, and so on. And we had characterized the omni-loving as a set that had characteristics such as love, compassion, harmony, relationship, and so on. So these sets define possibilities that create or are responsible for the different architecture of organizations or the different reasons why organizations exist. And what we went on to do is we hypothesized that every single organization that exists, again regardless of complexity and regardless of scale, so whether we're looking at an individual, a team, a department, a business, a market, or a country, for instance, we said that there's a unique signature that identifies the reason that that organization exists. And we had call that signature SIG, and the equation that we derived for it was basically X, that's an element, a primary element from one of these characteristics in these sets, and an integer A that describes its relative strength, and a secondary element Y also derived from one of these sets, and B that also suggests its relative strength, and this second element could repeat itself from 0 to n times. And again, X is an element from any of the elements in these four sets, and we had characterized that by the set of omnipresence, the set of omnipower, the set of omniscience, and the set of omniloving. Y, the secondary element, was an element also from the same universe of elements, so the set of omnipresence, the set of omnipower, the set of omniscience, the set of omniloving. And A and B are integers such that A is greater than B. So X is always the primary element and Y the secondary. And finally, what we had done was that we had suggested that this signature is going to develop in time, and we referred to a universal developmental model that we had derived earlier, and the way that we represented this emergence of the signature was by signature to the base E, and this is equal to X, where the X can be either P, V, M, I, F, C, and at the level P, the signature is going to be modulated. So this signature here is going to be modulated by the constant pi. At the vital level, the signature is going to be modulated by the constant E. At the mental level, the signature is going to be modulated by the Gaussian distribution G. At the level of integration, the signature is going to be modulated by an integrative function G E pi. At the level of force, the signature is going to be modulated by the constant c, the speed of light, and at the contextual level, the signature is going to be modulated by an integrative function equal to 1. And so this equation defined the emergence of the signature, and we also said that the relative strength, or the signature, is going to emerge much more strongly as we move up the scale from P, V, M, I, F to C. So there might be an increasing strength of the signature as it goes from P, V, M, and then rapidly increasing as it gets to I, and then asymptotically increasing as it gets to I and C. So we have something like that. And this is how we had arrived at finally at the signature, the equation for signature and for the emergence of the signature.